This is GBC News, the headlines. Sir Keir Starmer fighting to remain Prime Minister tonight as a rebellion within his own party gathers pace. The GST says it beggars belief that the lawyer drafting the conflict of interests law has connections to Hassan's. The government responds accusing the GST leader of having his own hypocritical blurred lines. And owners of e-scooters must register online as from Monday. Good evening. Sir Keir Starmer is fighting to remain Prime Minister tonight as a rebellion in his own party gathers pace. More than 80 Labour MPs have today publicly called on Sir Keir to resign following the party's heavy defeat in last week's local elections across the UK. 4 junior ministers have quit their posts today. Miatta Fahnbulleh, Jess Phillips, Alex Davies-Jones and Subir Ahmed all urged the Prime Minister to set a timetable for his departure. Sir Keir, however, struck a defiant tone at a Crunch cabinet meeting in Downing Street, insisting no formal leadership challenge had been triggered and that the country expected the government to get on with governing. More than 100 Labour MPs have signed a letter warning against a leadership contest. Gibraltar will be keeping a close eye on developments. Keir Starmer and his Labour government finalised the treaty over the ROC's future relationship with the EU this year. The GST says it beggars belief that the conflicts of interests law, which was recommended by the Openshaw report, has been drafted by Daniel Greenberg, who has a long-standing professional relationship with the government and Hassan's. Opposition leader Keith Asobardi says, given the central role that the relationship between the Chief Minister and Hassan's played in the Openshaw's report's most serious findings, somebody else should have drafted that bill.
I think you've got to go back to what this report is about and what the findings were. This is a report where Sir Peter Openshaw decided that the Chief Minister had acted in a grossly improper way, sought to attempt to interfere in a criminal investigation and that the Chief Minister was unable to properly navigate the conflicts of interest with the senior partner of Hassan's. He recommended that there should be a law drafted to deal with conflicts of interest, and he said that it should be perhaps modelled on the Canadian model. But do we really have to get to the stage where the government now instructs someone who has a long-standing relationship with the government and with Hassan's to draft that law? Do people really think that is the reasonable and proper thing to do? Have the government learnt anything from what Sir Peter Openshaw himself talks about the importance of appearances?
Well, Daniel Greenberg is an independent lawyer who serves as Commissioner for Standards in the House of Commons, and you yourself said he's an unimpeachable professional. But by saying he should not be drafting this bill, aren't you suggesting otherwise?
We're saying that it's important to look at the big picture here. And the big picture here is that underlying the recommendations of Sir Peter Openshaw and his findings, he is expressing real concerns about how conflicts of interest are handled and the importance of appearances. And having come from a report where the navigation of the conflicts of interest are between the government and Hassan's, do you ask someone who has a long-standing relationship with the government and Hassan's to draft that particular law? Daniel Greenberg is not drafting this law as Commissioner for Standards. He's an independent lawyer in private practice obtaining payment for these services. The point is not about the individual. It's about the fact that the individual has a relationship, a professional relationship with Hassan's and the government, and in the context of the fact that the McGrail inquiry was all about the inability of navigation of conflicts between Hassan's and the Chief Minister. Those were some of the important findings. We think it's not the right thing to do in principle to get a lawyer from with those existing relationships to draft the law, because there are, after all, thousands of lawyers out there who could be drafting this law. I mean, are we really supposed to believe that it's only possible that this particular person draft the law? There are hundreds of other lawyers out there that could be drafting this particular law.
Well, Sir Peter Openshaw's report also highlighted the importance of safeguards that needed to be in place, and the government has consulted with the public and the private sector representatives. So this isn't just a drafting between the government and a lawyer it works closely with.
Look, we are going to issue our reaction on the substance of the law on a separate occasion, and we're going to deal with that. And we have some serious concerns about the substance of the law. But today is not a reaction that we're giving on the substance of the law, about the extent of consultation, about whether it's engaged properly or not. We're dealing with the principle that, having come out of a report where the most serious findings about the attempts and the grossly improper conduct of the chief minister are about the relationship with a particular law firm, you do not, as a matter of principle, no one reasonable out there thinks it is the right thing to do to get someone with precisely a long-standing relationship with the government and Hassan's to draft the law.
In response, the government has accused the GSD leader of having his own hypocritical blurred lines, accusing Keith Asopardi of capitalising on the Openshaw report at any available opportunity, while conveniently ignoring the fact that TSN, the law firm in which both he and Damon Bosina are directors, advised the Gibraltar Police Authority as its client. It adds the GSD has no qualms about criticising the GPA whenever it deems it politically favourable to do so. The government also points out that Daniel Greenberg is instructed by the government, not by Hassan's, adding that Mr. Greenberg has 30 years' experience specialising in legislation and the legislative process. As such, it claims he is uniquely qualified on the subject of conflicts of interest. Number 6 highlights that Mr. Asopardi was a former Hassan's associate himself, and that the party is proposing to give life membership to Daniel Feetham, who is a partner at Hassan's. The government accuses Keith Asopardi and Damon Bosina of trying to promote the interests of TSN by seeking to veto the instruction of another. In other news, the US Ohio-class nuclear submarine, which has been on the rocks since Sunday, departed this morning. The submarine was escorted by the Royal Navy Gibraltar Squadron, the Defence Police and the military escort, understood to be a detachment of Royal Marines. There are 18 Ohio-class submarines, the largest in the US Navy. 14 of them carry half of the United States' active nuclear warheads. In other news, the government is cracking down on what it describes as a growing proliferation of unauthorised advertising banners across Gibraltar. It says any unauthorised adverts must be removed by their owners within 2 weeks. In a statement, it says all the display of all adverts require consent from the DPC to ensure they're appropriate in scale, design, and also location. The government highlights banners on railings and other public infrastructure, describing them as having a detrimental impact on how Gibraltar looks, adding in some cases they can also pose as a distraction to road users. And owners of e-scooters, also known as personal light electric transporters or PLETs, must register online at pletreg.gov.gi as from Monday. Registration is compulsory and includes a £15 fee for a year. There will be a grace period ahead of enforcement. The new measure and the reasoning behind it was introduced at a press conference earlier today.
We're doing a lot of work on this, and there is more work to come. At the moment, what we're doing is we're requiring the PLETs as currently defined in the 2023 law, requiring them to be registered. There will be a small fee, and the registration process will be a very easy online process, and Stuart will give you the details now, and they will generate a sticker. Essentially, we will require, after a transition period, all these PLETs on our roads, be they from Gibraltar or coming across the border, to be registered with us.
Second phase is to start enforcement in terms of careless driving, dangerous driving and so on. If there's no registration, we'll not be able to actually do much in terms of enforcement. So therefore, It's a requirement because locally we need to know who is using these on the public highway. And that's really important to put across they're using public highway. That's you're using public highway like any other vehicle, you need to follow the same rules and same registration process as everyone else.
4 people have been charged with public order offences in relation to a fight in January in the Upper Town, in the area of Galpe and Willis's Road. 22-year-old Ben Brown and a 16-year-old girl were each charged with common assault and violent disorder. The 16-year-old also faces 3 counts of assault on police. 42-year-old Kyle Gonzalez and 39-year-old Jolene Gonzalez were also charged with violent disorder. All 4 appeared before the Magistrates' Court, with their case adjourned until next week. You're watching GBC News. Still to come, the American Chamber of Commerce seeks out Gibraltar's future business leaders, and mental health services were the topic of discussion as the GHA Director General joined Kellyanne Borge on Gibraltar today. Back in just a few minutes. Stay with us. Welcome back. The American Chamber of Commerce Gibraltar has launched the 30 Under 30 programme, through which it says it will recognise the next generation of leaders shaping Gibraltar's business and global future. AmCham's James Lasry says the initiative will highlight young professionals under the age of 30. He says they will be recognised for leadership, innovation and a commitment to strengthening Gibraltar's economy as well as its international relationships, particularly with the United States.
We will have several categories, with community involvement, leadership in a certain area. There will be. We're not looking for one type of person. We're looking for people who have tried to go beyond their comfort zone to try to do something interesting, innovative, or for the community.
Limited to perhaps the traditional corporate world, or perhaps you're looking at something different, more innovative, or?
Oh, definitely more innovative. The corporate world is wonderful. It's my world, but it's not the only world. So people in any aspect that unites that idea of entrepreneurship and can do. So those are the things that we really want to encourage.
And now with the opportunities, you're talking about opportunities for these individuals. What sort of opportunities will they be offered, or what sort of growth will they have the potential to undergo?
Well, there are a number of different aspects to that. The most fundamental will be that there will be an awards ceremony and they will be recognized publicly. But more than that, we hope to develop a cohort every year, which will in itself create a networking platform for people who are not only of the corporate world, or not only of the sports world, or just people from very, very different aspects of life in Gibraltar.
AmCham has been strengthening ties with Gibraltar, developing those ties, strengthening those ties with the US. Now, given the current climate, the global climate, it's a complicated one. Is it perhaps more meaningful to foster relations at this moment, perhaps?
It's a good question. At AmCham, we're not political. So the tradition that we want to foster is the 250-year-old tradition of the United States, which this is now its 250th anniversary. This is not something that we're trying to do because of the events of the last month, 6 months, a year. This is a long-term program. We were founded in 2014, and it's not politically driven.
It's Mental Health Awareness Week in Gibraltar. The Mental Health Board independently audits services available through the GHA and compiles an annual report on their current state. Director General of the GHA, Dr. Paul Vossier, was on Gibraltar today. He was joined by the author of the Mental Health Board report, George Barodi. They were joined by Conchita Triay of the Mental Welfare Society, and they sat down with Kellyanne Ward to discuss a range of topics, which also included assisted living.
Something that has been a very important issue for us is the need of more beds in assisted living. By that I mean places where people who don't have to be in hospital but who are incapable of living on their own in the community, even with a package of care, would live. You know, somewhere where they are housed, where they eat, where they're taken care of, where their medication is given to them as necessary. We feel there is a need for that. I'm not sure exactly how many people, but it is needed. We have been told by the minister within the last couple of years that yes, there was a commitment for that, but you know, there needs to be more than a verbal commitment. We need to see that it's actually happening. But I think we need to work towards continuing to reduce waiting times. I don't know how exactly we do that if we don't invest more in it, but it needs to happen.
What are current waiting times?
I think about 27 weeks.
For our psychologists, the median waiting time at the moment is 28 weeks, which is way too much. But we've increased the number of psychologists. We have 7 psychologists, we have 3 counsellors, and in fact the median waiting time 2 years ago was over 100 weeks. Wow. So there's a significant improvement, still way too long, but by looking at efficiencies and looking at the way that we're working, digitalizing is another way that we can do that. It's not as simple as just throwing extra psychologists at it. We may have to come to that, but there's been significant improvement, and if we maintain that trajectory, we should be able to see a significant improvement. I looked at the figures, and even this morning, at the moment, we've got 16 patients on our books waiting for an appointment, which is unheard of in terms of where we were before. Still 16
it's
too
much
many.
Less.
Still too many. Yeah,
but
much
Very
less.
reduced.
But very reduced, but based on criteria, selection criteria, efficiencies and all that. But if we do need extra manpower, we will invest in
But
that.
can I just comment on that? Because for many years, we were told, the public was told that we had a full complement. And, you know, my view always was, well, if we have a full complement, but people are having to wait so long, then there needs to be more people. And now you're saying that we have 7 instead of the 5. Yeah?
I wouldn't disagree with that. I mean, a full complement means nothing if it's not the right complement.
Yeah.
So you need to look at the need, the requirements. Sometimes it's a case of making sure the criteria of where each patient goes to what healthcare provider is the right one.
Picking up on Conchita's point about assisted living, we have a small model in Gibraltar already in Sampits, where we have, at the moment, I think it's 4 service users who are actually being taken care of. And the reports that we are getting from relatives and from patients
that it's the best they've ever been.
It's not that Sampits is ideal. There's a lot of things that we're doing, physical aspects of it. But they've got activities. They go out every day. They go shopping. They have a small budget, and issues, for example, was before with CMHT have improved. So there's a mental health input from that as well. This kind of model is something that government should be really looking at, and it's not just a ward somewhere or a house somewhere. It's just because people will need different types of assisted living as they move on, because they will continue to have their mental health issues until old age.
An exhibition by sculptor Mark Montovio explores themes rooted in parenthood and related social stigma. The collection, up now at John Mackintosh Hall, Corútero, makes use of ceramics and naturally occurring driftwood as Mark challenges preconceptions about the roles attached to men and women, drawing from his own experience as a single father.
The first piece, which is called Corútero, which is Corútero without a number, is over 20-odd years old. And then shortly after that, my son was born. And I left that sort of scene to the side. But there were obviously things that I was thinking about, in terms of stereotyping and how, we view parenting. And then it became real. As a single dad, it became very real. And art for me is the best way to process, to express, to understand, to give space to thoughts, happy thoughts, bad thoughts. Parenting is a like the dance of life, really, you know? And, you know, so is art. I mean, sometimes you're working with something, you're working with a material, which is why I love to work with wood that has come, you know, down the river, being bashed, smashed, broken, weathered into the sea. It's gone through its stuff, no? And then you get it, and there's a certain beauty in that suffering. And for me to polish that up. So there's also that sense of this idea of perfection, which is such a mystical thing. There's no such thing as perfection. And there's beauty in imperfection. And I think this work is a little bit like that. No? This work is a little bit, it has contrasts of the ceramic, which I did in Tangier. And a lot of the wood is also, you know, from there, but a lot of it is also from German Spain. So it's been a process of the first one over 20 years ago, and then the last lot, over 30 of them, in the last year.
Between creating that first piece 2 decades ago and completing the collection in this past year, Mark says that, as a single father, he has experienced the damaging impacts of negative stereotypes firsthand. Through his work and through dialogue, he seeks to dispel these myths and the insidious harm that they can cause.
I've also learned as a result of my work that the most important ingredient to raise, you know, good kids that will become good adults is a nurturer. And the nurturer has no gender. There's no gender to nurturing. There's no gender. Of course, there is stigma attached to that too. You know, men cannot be gentle. Of course, men can be gentle in the same way that women can be powerful and strong. And we need to move away from that. No? I think I've tried to combine the stability of the wooden chunk of sort of tree that has gone through all sorts of processes. So there is that. That doesn't change. Even when you burn it, it just turns black and possibly a little bit more fragile, like humans, no? And then the ceramic, you know, the way that it unfolds and the way that it sits on something that's much more stable. And in some of them, the branches that reach out. So it's, you know, it's a dance. It's like a dance of life, and parenting is like that. The idea is to understand that as time goes on, you will be needed less in that physical sense. But your child, if you've done it right, will never forget what you have done, and will always need, you know, to know that you have been, to know that you are, to know that you still exist, and to know that, you know, that you really cared. And I think that is the role of parenting.
And over now to this evening's lottery draw. First prize and £100,000 goes to ticket number 13766. Second prize and £10,000 to ticket number 18392. While third prize and £5,000 goes to the owner of ticket number 14728. Congratulations to all the winners out there. And that's all from tonight's news. More online and more on our socials. As always, we'll also have our Radio Gibraltar news summaries on the hour, every hour. That's from 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. From the team, from myself, thanks for watching. Good night.